That's right.
It won't let me pin the comment for some reason. I don't know why. The tip jar. Hello! We have 21 people here already. Sorry we're a little late getting online. I'm having some problems with the interface tonight. I want to try one more thing here. Hello? Pin comment. Okay, now it's letting me do it. Great. Hello.
Merry after Christmas.
Let me pull this up on the other device. Let's see.
Who got new instruments for Christmas?
Yeah.
We did. Although not what you might expect. We got penny whistles for Christmas this year.
That's right.
We each got one, a Clark's of England penny whistle, and recommendations for YouTubes to watch. So this will give us something to do over the cold winter nights, I think.
It will. Okay.
I don't expect we'll play them with old-time music, though.
No, maybe not. We've heard penny whistle with old-time music, and I think it's kind of an acquired taste. Okay. It's so hard to tell tonight. Something about the interface has changed since the last time we did this. But I guess you'll let us know if you're struggling to see or hear. We've got 44 people out there, so we better play a tune, I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Hello. This is a jam session, not a concert. We hope you have instruments and will be playing along. We can't hear you, but that's okay.
And it is being recorded and will be available after the fact.
Yes, so if you're struggling with any of these tunes, or if you just want to experience them over again, check for the archive video later on, and you can play to your heart's content. The theme is round peak music, so we'll start out with a tune that's played in that tradition an awful lot, but that you might be familiar with from other places too. The round peakers tended to call it Susanna Gal. Susanna Gal in the Round Peak tradition, Fly Around My Pretty Little Miss, and a lot of other traditions.
Sometimes known as Western Country.
Yep,
And,
Blue-Eyed Gal, a lot of different titles for that tune, but it's a real favorite. We've got 66 people in the room by my phone's count. Welcome everyone, this is our Round Peak Jam.
Breaking out Christmas.
Hope you're ready to play along. Fiddles, banjos, any new holiday gift instrument that you might have received, even a penny whistle like the ones that we got, feel free. I'm still not loving this view. Maybe that's a little bit better.
Are y'all able to see hands well enough to suit you?
Yeah. Tell us if we can do anything different. I've got some comments up on this other device. I'm going to quickly scroll through. People are able to hear, people are able to see. Oh, good. Thank you. So nice to see many familiar names in the crowd and some new ones too. Thanks for joining us. So the theme is breaking up Christmas, right? Yeah. Isn't that about appropriate for the time of year that this is? And Breaking Up Christmas is one of the best known tunes from the Round Peak tradition. Round Peak referring to the musical sort of sub-style, old-time music sub-style from around Surrey County, North Carolina, at the base of the Blue Ridge, just below the Virginia line. We're going to be playing tunes as we've learned them from that tradition, from older players and newer players. We don't think of ourselves as Round Peak musicians because we're not from that community, but we sure do love that music. We've listened to it a whole lot. And we've tried to learn everything about it that we can. And
this is our take on Round Peak, but we try to be as respectful as we can. Yeah. And I had the great pleasure of actually hearing Tommy Gerald in real life play, which was amazing. And also some of the other luminaries like Benton Flippin and Dick Freeman and Ernest East and my hero Chester McMillan on the guitar, as well as some of the younger set, Kirk Sutphin and Kevin Four, Andy Edmonds, Eddie Bond. They're all fantastic. They're still playing and they're all fantastic to listen to and have a great command of this style and this music. So if you're looking for some contemporary players, check them out.
Absolutely.
But we're gonna try our best to do it some justice.
Yep, we're gonna do what we can. We're starting in D, and then after a few in this key, we'll move over to A. You'll get fair warning. Don't worry. We need to retune and reconfigure too, so you'll have a chance to do the same thing. We thought we'd play kind of a cross section of tunes from the Round Peak tradition, some of which are unique to that community, others of which were played elsewhere too, like the last tune, but that the Round Peakers treated in their own unique way. So we hope you'll enjoy the selections. We hope you'll learn some new tunes and enjoy revisiting some old ones too.
Did you want to say anything about a fiddle thing?
Actually,
I have a couple of guitar things I'd like to reiterate.
Sure. I've got the fiddle tuned in a different way for the key of D from my usual, and this is the way Tommy Gerald tended to tune for D and some of the other Round Peak guys did. A on the bottom string instead of G. A, D, A, E. And that opens up some cool sounding droning options down at the bottom, and it also makes some of the fingering a little bit easier as long as I can remember which tuning I'm in, so my fingers don't land in the wrong place. Fiddlers, feel free to tune that way or use your standard violin tuning. That'll work just fine too. Beth is going to be uncapoed for the key of D, and then she'll put the capo on for A, but she has one shape that you might not recognize.
Yeah, and I always like to point this out. I play the A chord with one finger, like this, and I don't do this position at all. So I do this, and I also do, I guess what you would call old G, which is this way,
first three fingers,
as opposed to this way.
Right.
So that's what I'm going to be doing. And when I'm looking for notes to play, I am not methodical at all. I go completely for what the sound is. And I almost every single thing I do in the second fret.
Yep.
So I just kind of pick up that finger and move it around until I find what seems to work.
Yeah. So guitarists, feel free to follow that lead and hunt around a little bit at the second fret.
Another couple of things I would say about Round Peak with the rhythm and the guitar, there's a couple of things. One is that they do use alternating bass a lot, but they also tend to hang on to one note a lot. To instead of boom, 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 it's like boom, 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 boom on one note to give a tension and
Yeah.
Is that how you describe it?
Yeah, it builds tension. This
And-
music builds tension in all kinds of interesting ways. So like
Right.
on the D chord, instead of alternating D strum, A strum,
right.
you might just stay on the D string. D
Ding, ding, ding,
strum,
ding, ding, ding,
D strum,
like that.
D strum over and over.
And some of it use that more than others. Rockingham Cindy is, which we will play later, uses that a great deal. The other thing that uses, again, you got to remember that this is dance music. It's a lot of tension and a lot of drive and a lot of staccato and that sort of thing. So I do a lot of what I call choking the chord, which is tension, off on, off on, off on.
Not letting the fretted notes ring out.
Right, not letting them ring. So you kind of blop them like this, you know. It's such an educated word. and what was the other thing I was thinking about?
Spaces.
Oh yeah, and sometimes you get more sound from playing nothing. You know, so you leave a space as opposed to filling every possible space with a chord sound or a strum. So just sort of listen for those kind of things. They're kind of hard to convey, but if you listen as the tune goes on and realize that you're going for tension and danceability, that'll help you a lot.
Absolutely, and that'll add to the groove of the music, even though we're not going to be playing it all that fast. It'll still have this kind of exciting feeling. And the Brown Peakers didn't tend to play all that fast either, and I think some of their drive gets mistaken these days for actual speed.
And I will say one other thing. Dick Freeman, who was a wonderful banjo player who played in Ernest East Band, and he played with Tommy some, and it was his house that was used for the Sprout Wings and Fly movie Dance. That was Dick Freeman's house, and his son Nick McMillan is carrying on the tradition in a big way. Dick's wife always summed up whether the tune was good or not by saying at the end of the tune, "Why, that made me want to hit the floor and dance." So this is what we're aiming for.
Absolutely, hitting the floor and dancing. Let's play Fortune, shall we?
lost it.
Fortune I lost it one night when I got drunk,
That's
right?
right.
Something like that. It is so hard for me to see the comments tonight. I don't know why that is. They're showing up real faint on the iPad. So if you're saying something really important and I overlook
Pull
it,
it up
maybe
closer
say
to
it
you.
again. Well, it's still faint. It's like they're halfway
The light might be
appearing.
down.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Don't know what's going on. That's all right. We've got 84 people, though, with us. I think that's fantastic. Can you imagine what an 84-person in-person jam would sound like? Probably not very good at
I'm
all.
gonna look at a comment wise. Whoops.
Uh-oh.
All right. Let's see.
Because, see, you still have to scroll on the phone.
Okay. All right. If we need, if y'all really, what if they have super questions?
Well, I guess we might not be able to answer them tonight, but we'll take a look every now and then.
Okay. We'll do the best we can.
This is the third one of these online jams that we've done, and I'm serious. I feel like something about the interface is a little different this time around, because I thought I really had it down before. Oh well. We're going to play Rockingham Cindy next. Beth was talking about this one earlier as being a good one for the rhythm section to really experiment with focusing on one note over and over again instead of an alternating thing. Banjo players could maybe try some of the same. And it's nice, especially because it holds on to the D chord for a long time.
And if any of you do it, approach your playing like I do, I have to have the tune singing in my head, or I can't play it. And if it's a singing tune that has words, it's generally the words, are singing in my head. But this one will really mess you up, because if you're like I am, you grew up learning to sing, y'all just, get along home, Cindy, this kind of thing. But it's very different in the rhythm and the pacing of the words.
Watch out.
So watch out, because this one resolves differently from that, even though it uses the same words. So keep we're not going to sing it, but keep that in mind.
It'll fool you into thinking it's just like Get Along Home,
But
Cindy,
it's not.
but then the B part comes and the timing is all strange.
Okay.
Rockingham Cindy. Anybody out there get tangled up in the crookedness of that one?
It is pretty crooked, that one.
I love it though.
It's one of my favorites.
All right. People are getting along, looks like. Yes, so nice to see everyone out there.
Can you read them a little better?
I wish we could hear people playing along.
I do too.
Still a little bit faint, but that's
But you
okay.
can make them out. Any questions?
No questions that I'm seeing so far. Can I hear your D chord, please?
Okay. So the next one we're going to play is one that I learned a really long time early on when I was learning to play old time music, and thought it was a little complicated, but it's sort of straightforward. But it still is kind of complicated. And Adam was working on this one to get it right for the round peak version of it, and I had to learn some new chords for the round peak version. So it's a little bit different, and
but it's actually simpler. This is going to be Fischer's Hornpipe, and this is a tune I feel like the banjo players hate to hear suggested because it can be so notey and it's kind of hard to keep up with on the banjo. Well, I hate to hear it called on the fiddle too for similar reasons. But the way Tommy Jarrell played this on the fiddle was so elegant. He kind of stripped it down to the essence of the tune, and I think it's a lot easier to play this way and more interesting sounding. And some of the chording is a little bit different from what you might be used to, and the learning curve will be there if so. But once you learn the new chords, I think you'll find them easier too.
And I make no promises that I will get it right.
Yeah.
And I'm going to do my best because it does have a really unique sound.
Yeah.
And,
so if you know some other kind of Fischer's Hornpipe, just leave a lot of stuff out and you'll probably do just fine on this one.
Okay.
All right. Peak way, the Tommy Jarrell way.
I don't think I
the
missed
closest
it.
we can come. No, you
I
got
don't
all
think
the
I missed
chords in
it.
the right
Yay.
places. Isn't it fun to play that way?
Yeah.
Anybody familiar with that version? Isn't it more user-friendly than the fancier, like, northern version? I think so.
Any more comments?
Just a few. No questions that I'm seeing yet. Hi, Bob Carbone. Great to see you out there. Hi, Sheila. Yes. Hi, Sheila. Sheila is applauding now. That's just great. Hello, Fran. We've got 103 people here.
Whoa.
I think that's the biggest one of these so far.
Gracious.
We weren't sure if this would be a popular period for an online jam or a really unpopular period for one.
Well, I think what's happening is that people are finding out they can't go places again this year.
Not so many parties
Not so
between
many.
Christmas and New Year's
Yeah.
as there sometimes are.
Yeah.
We're going to do one more in the key of D, and then we're going to switch over to A. And this last one in D
Yes.
is
What
a
is the
must-do.
What is the other name of this
Right,
song?
it's a must-do because it is sometimes referred to as the Round Peak National Anthem, the Surrey County National Anthem
That's
for the
right.
great nation of Surrey County or Round Peak. It's Sally Ann, and like every old-time musician in that community had a version of this tune, and it's so good.
Help me with that part.
This happens in the last part. It's sort of a three-part tune. They're not all the same length. And in the third part, which seems to go on and on, Beth is going to do this alternating thing from the D string strum and then the second fret on the A string. And it kind of complements the melody. Yeah. And see how she's mostly taking apart the D chord when she reaches over?
But I don't take my hand off completely because you
leave
lose it.
that
You
one
lose
down.
it if you do that. So it's just basically taking the index finger, putting it on the A string, bum, bum, from the G to the A,
Yeah.
G to the A,
And the
G
right
to the
hand
A.
is alternating D and A
Yeah.
strings.
So and
It's
it
a
gives
really
it,
good
it
sound.
gives it a little more depth.
Yeah, I think so. All right, Sally Ann, here we go.
Miss Charlie's hitting the floor and dancing in heaven.
Let's hope. All right, that's it for the key of D. Let's move over to A. Beth is going to capo up and use G position the way some of the round peak guitarists do, not all. But that's the way you generally prefer. Why don't you touch up the tuning a little bit? It's hot in here. I feel like the instruments are moving around a bit.
It is, we're in Virginia, Southern Virginia, and it is 71 degrees today. And we talked to Adam's mother, who's in St. Paul, Minnesota, and it was like one-digit temps.
Horrible.
Yeah, big change.
Yep, I'm glad we're not there at the moment.
Me too.
All right, she's capoing up and checking tuning, and I'm getting into the cross A tuning, AEAE from low to high. Feel free to join me there. I think these tunes really do play far better in that tuning and sound better too than in the standard tuning.
This is a good time for a bathroom break.
Yeah, that's right. People having fun so far. Hi, Paul Brown. Thank you.
Hey, Paul Brown.
Glad you're there with us. Christy, hello.
Oh, ask Paul Brown a question.
Yes, if Paul Brown is still there. I'm
If
not
Paul
sure
Brown
he
is still there, did Paul Sutphin play with a capo or not? I cannot remember. I've seen him play.
I think he might have played without a capo, but I don't know if that's true or always true. Paul Brown, any take on that if you're still with us in the chat room? Yes, hello. Hi, Rose. Hi, Sandy. Emma, hello. Steve Saylor loves the Fisher's Hornpipe from Tommy Jarrell. I thought you might. Great.
Praised. Sorry, y'all.
That's okay.
Weather is not happy.
How's the D shape? I think
Sure.
We'll start with that tuning and then touch it up as we go. There are a lot of banjo players out there with us. They're needing time to tune anyway.
Good.
All right, the first tune that we're going to do here in the key of A has one of the stranger titles in old-time music. I wish I knew what it meant, but it's kind of a fun title. Old Bunch of Keys. Old Bunch of Keys. What does that mean? Keys like, I don't know, opening doors and starting cars, or keys like the keys we play in? There aren't a whole bunch of
I
those.
suspect when they wrote it, there weren't cars.
Maybe not. An old bunch of keys. Not whole bunch, old bunch. Anybody know what that means?
I've never thought about a whole bunch of keys. That's pretty funny.
Isn't that strange? But it's a great tune that we like to play.
Yeah.
B part hangs out on the 5 chord for a long time.
Only 2 chords in this tune.
All right. Old bunch of keys, not too fast. I've ever heard. I really wonder if anyone can fill us in on what that means.
Well, talking about something strange, so this next tune is like, besides Sally Ann, it's probably the Round Peak tune.
The next one we're going to do, oh, definitely.
Pretty much the Round Peak tune, which is John Brown's Dream. And one time I went to a fiddler's convention. It was near Gayline. Outside of Gayline. It was incredible. It was the first fiddler's convention of the season. It was at the
Fairview Reuben building.
Reuben.
Can you tell I'm not from around there?
Yeah, he's not from around here, but he can say y'all. Anyway, it was at the Fairview Ruritan Club, and they decided to change things up that year, and just for the heck of it, to try to make the finals more level playing field for the bands. And so there are 5 finalists, and that make the cut.
Was
it
only 5? It seemed like it went on forever.
It lasted forever, but it was the 5 bands that made the cut all had to play John Brown's Dream. They were not allowed to play anything else. And
good luck if you didn't know it.
It was like Adam said, it was John Brown. I heard John Brown's Dream in my dreams for years after that. So it was really
we're
funny.
Going to play John Brown's Dream.
And they didn't choose to do that again, I don't
No.
think, after that year.
No.
But it was pretty funny.
Paul Brown has chimed in on the subject of Paul Sutphen's
Sutphen.
guitar playing
Fantastic
and
guitar
capo
player.
use. Did not use the capo
Okay.
for the key of A, and he played that long A shape with the little finger too.
Yeah.
Or maybe his hands were big enough that he did it with ring finger.
If I remember what Paul Brown said about Paul Sutphen, which I was not privy to until later. I mean, I didn't see him play more than 2 or 3 times, but he played so hard. He played heavy gauge strings on the guitar, and they kept pulling the bridge off, and so he had to like bolt the bridge down to the thing. I think that's what Paul said about it.
I think that's right.
Do you remember that
I
story?
remember something about that.
Oh my God.
But anyway, he had a really big, beautiful sound.
And a really big, beautiful smile.
That's
so
right.
You never forgot Paul Sutphen.
I've seen
once you
pictures
saw
of him and that smile.
He was something else. So,
All right, John Brown's Dream, The Devil Is Dead.
I don't know if we'll do it justice, but we'll try. attention.
So many cool things you can do with that tune.
I don't need my pen.
Love it. Well, let's play something with 3 chords in it this time. The last 2 had just the 2 chords. That's kind of funny. Big-Eyed Rabbit. Such a fun tune to play. Sing along if you know the lyrics. There are some. They kind of tell a story.
It's not particularly PETA friendly, though.
Yeah, maybe not.
Is it, shoot that rabbit, he don't mind, fry him in my pan. But
no,
whatever.
we won't be singing
We won't sing it. No.
You may.
You can if you want to.
All right, Big-Eyed Rabbit. And if you're not familiar with this tune, the structure might disorient you a little bit. It's kind of crooked. The B part sort of echoes the A part. They're different lengths from each other, so listen to it once around or so until you start hearing familiar qualities, and then you'll know where the top is.
Yeah, you should see any questions or anything.
A lot of comments. I'm not quite able to keep up with them, but that's okay. I'm not seeing questions. If we're missing any questions, please forgive us. We will go back through the chat when the jam is all over, and if there are questions there, we will try to answer them. It'll just come a little after the fact. All right, Big-Eyed Rabbit. crashing into your
Well, no, it's
knee.
my humdinger new spin chair I got for Christmas. I can move around.
Yep.
And I've moved around too far.
It's fun for you to dance in, isn't
Oh,
it?
yeah. Absolutely.
All right, time for Greasy String. Greasy String, we like this one a whole lot. I'm not sure if it's supposed to have 3 chords in it, but Beth does put the 4 chord in as kind of a passing sound, and we like it a whole lot. I don't know if Paul Brown is still out there, but Paul, I sort of learned this off of my memory of your fiddling. The Toast String Stretchers played such a good version of this tune on one of those anthologies. I forget if it was the Old Time Music on the Air or the Clifftop Tribute CD or something like that. One of those great anthologies, and I just thought the tune was so cool, and I sure did enjoy your fiddling, Paul Brown. I wish you were here with your fiddle or your banjo or your guitar, anything you want.
Maybe we could do that sometime.
Maybe we could do that sometime. All right, Greasy String. Greasy String. Isn't that fun to play? I feel like you don't hear that one around very much. Now for something completely different. Completely different. Let's make sure there aren't any questions here.
Yeah.
I still can't get these Okay. Paul Brown says Greasy String was on the Clifftop Tribute CD, and if y'all don't have that CD and there's a way to get it, I don't know if it's still available. You should. That was a life-changing CD for me. I listened to it so many times, and once I dig it out of storage somewhere, I can't wait to hear it again. We're about to play something quite different. Thought it might be nice to unwind a little bit with a waltz at this point in the evening. We're going to do the Blackest Crow, or As Time Draws Near. We're not going to sing it. We're just going to play it as an instrumental. And it's a little bit different chord-wise than you might expect. The A part starts on the 5 chord. That's D shape, the E chord, however you want to think about that. And there is a minor. It's the F sharp minor, or her E minor shape.
Position here.
Yeah, another good reason to play A with capo on. It's such a pretty piece.
This is probably the most beautiful to me of all the round peak pieces and everything. And we certainly, Adam was a little skeptical about doing it because he wanted to make sure that he was playing an accurate 2 round peak version. And then we finally decided that, we're just going to play it the way we hear it and the way that we like it. And if you like it, great. Our inspiration is round peak, and we'll just take it from there.
Yeah, and to be honest, I could not track down any kind of primary source fiddle recording of this tune. Contemporary old-time fiddlers have recorded it a whole bunch in some wonderful ways, but Tommy Jarrell's recording that I know was on the banjo. And I don't know if Tommy also played this on the fiddle and I just haven't found the recording, or if people have interpreted from his banjo playing, or if other round peak fiddlers played it. I don't know. Maybe someone out there can fill us in. And banjo players, if you're not used to playing waltzes, please don't be scared. The clawhammer stride is so well suited to this time signature. Just put your finger strikes on the numbered beats. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And put your thumbs and the left hand moves on the ands. Any of them you want. 1 and 2 and 3 and 1 and 2 and 3 and. Not too fast. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's like a breath of fresh air in this hot room.
We've had the air conditioner on twice today, and then it gets so cold, the instruments go out, then we have to turn it back off.
Yep.
It's ridiculous.
It's air conditioning at the end of December.
It's just ridiculous.
All right,
So
let's crank it up a notch.
Okay, we
shall
are.
we?
And I want to send out a thank you to Riley Bogus, who I heard sing and play this tune way back yonder. And I still think, for me, he does the definitive version of this tune.
Yep.
And the other thing we wanted to say about it is that we'd love to utterly camp it up and put in every kind of weird sound effect we can think of into it. So
it's so fun to play.
It's so fun, and we just happen to have railroad tracks that we can hear from our house.
That's right.
So this kind of inspires us a little bit.
Yep, this is going to be a little bit of
Reuben's
Reuben's
Train. Silly.
Love it.
If you're in a bad mood, sit down and play that tune. It'll make you laugh every time.
Absolutely. Just love how Beth gets the
Every time.
guitar going on that.
It's silly.
Love it.
It's
hilarious.
It's fun.
We're about to play maybe my favorite one on the whole list. We've got just a couple left.
Absolutely.
We're winding down, but this is too good to not include in the set.
We actually taught this tune in rhythm and repertoire class at Mars Hill several years ago, and this friend of ours from Charlotte said, "Oh, not that one! Please don't make us play that one." And he was the only one.
He was so disappointed that we had chosen
Yes,
this tune to
indeed.
teach. And I'm not sure we won him over.
I don't think we
after
did, but
we were done.
whatever.
But whatever, we like it.
Still one of our favorites. And this one is a little unusual. It starts on the 5.
Nope.
Nope, I'm still getting that straight. God, I thought it was going to be so good. 4 starts on
The A part starts on the 4
chord.
or the D,
The D.
but the B part starts on the 5.
Okay.
The E. Yep. So they don't start where you expect, but they kind of get to where you expect in the end. The tune is Tater Patch.
Okay.
Hope you enjoy it as much as we do. Tater Patch, isn't that fun? Love that one. Love that one. We're going to do one more number. We thank you all for joining in. Hope you've had a good time. We can't wait to scroll through all the comments, and I swear if there are questions, we will answer them. I tried, I'm not sure if I succeeded at the top of the program to pin links to our tip jars, PayPal and Venmo, and if I didn't manage to pin, scroll way up and they're up there somewhere. But if you feel inclined to throw some spare change our way, we'd gratefully receive it, and if you'd rather just coast along with us, that's fine too. These jams are a good opportunity for us to get in practice and stay in practice. And we don't think of them really as gigs per se, but they are fun, and hopefully we'll do some more of them over the winter.
Yeah, let us know if you want some more, and if there's a theme
like
this one.
Please send feedback, what went well, what didn't go so well, what you might like to hear differently next time. We do read your feedback and we take it into account when we plan these things. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We can't do a Breaking Up Christmas jam without playing
Breaking Up Christmas.
So let's break up Christmas now. We've got the Christmas tree over here. I'm not sure we're going to break it down right away, but soon.
Maybe we'll get some more stuff in the stockings.
Maybe we will.
Whatever.
Maybe we will. Thanks so much for listening. We hope you've been playing along. Sorry we can't hear you, but we can imagine how wonderful it sounds out there.
Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa,
Yep.
and Happy New Year.
Yep. Belated Happy Hanukkah. I think it's about as early as it ever can be this year, but it still happened in December. And here's hoping 2022 will be a really fruitful year for everyone out there, even
And we
as
can all be
keep
together
navigating
again.
these strange times.
Yeah.
All right, breaking up Christmas.
Sure did.
We still have 88 people in the room with
Good
us.
grief.
Isn't that something? Maybe this was a good time of day to do this.
Yep.
Well, whatever. Send us more feedback if you have it. We can't wait to scroll through all the comments and see what we missed. Only wish we could hear you playing along, but it's been great fun imagining what that sounded like.
Looking forward to seeing you guys this summer, we hope.
Yes, I'm clicking the finish button. I think that'll take us offline. Goodbye.